Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for participating in today's webinar on the 2018-19 NC Check-ins. My name is Jamie Kelly, and I'm an education consultant in policy and operations for statewide testing in grades 3 through 8. During the webinar, you will learn about the purposes and design of the NC Check-ins, policy information, how the check-ins are used for formative feedback, the reports that teachers and parents receive, and the resources available. During the 2015-16 proof of concept, schools were chosen to be part of a stratified random sample based on region, ethnicity, gender, economically disadvantaged, and mean scale score. The chosen sample was representative of North Carolina as a whole. 45 schools were sampled to administer the grade 5 mathematics, and 33 schools were chosen to administer the grade 6 ELA reading. At the conclusion of year 1, the State Board of Education approved the continuation of the proof of concept for 2016-17. The name was changed to NC Check-ins. Schools that were part of the sample in year 1 participated again, along with an additional 5% added to the sample, and volunteers were also welcome to join. The State Board approved the expansion of the NC Check-ins to include additional grade levels for the 2017-18 school year. No sample schools were required to participate. Over 1,000 schools participated. For 2018-19, more than half of the elementary and middle schools are anticipated to participate. The NC Check-ins have expanded again and now include grades 4 through 8 for ELA reading and grades 3 through 8 for mathematics. Because of the Read to Achieve legislation, there is not a grade 3 ELA reading NC Check-in offered at this time. NC Check-ins are interim assessments developed by the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction that are aligned to the North Carolina grade level content standards in ELA reading and mathematics. In ELA, NC Check-ins measure all grade level content standards assessed and increase in text complexity. For mathematics, each NC Check-in focuses on a selected subset of grade level content standards. The main purpose of the NC Check-ins is to provide students, teachers, parents, and stakeholders with immediate, in-depth action data and a reliable estimate of students' current performance on the selected subset of content standards. A secondary purpose of NC Check-ins is derived from its strong relationship with grade-level, end-of-grade summative assessments. Participation is voluntary, however, school districts or charter school leaders may require the NC Check-ins. All students enrolled in grades 4 through 8 according to PowerSchool and participate in the ELA Reading EOG assessment, and students enrolled in grades 3 through 8 according to PowerSchool and participate in the Mathematics EOG assessment are eligible to participate with or without accommodations in the check-ins. Schools may administer the NC check-ins at any time within the NCDPI designated administration window. The North Carolina Department of Public Instruction Test Development Section invited North Carolina teachers and educators to collaborate and develop recommendations for standards to be assessed, indicating the relative importance of each standard, the anticipated instructional time, and the appropriateness of the standard for different question types. NC Check-ins 1, 2, and 3 will assess the same ELA reading standards. All students are expected to be able to comprehend texts of steadily increasing complexity as they progress through a grade. The text complexity of the selections chosen for the NC Check-ins will increase throughout the year. Assessment specification meetings for mathematics were held in April 2018. The NCDPI Test Development Section collaborated with a panel of North Carolina teachers and educators to develop recommendations for the new or current content standards being assessed. Just like ELA reading, the panel recommended content standards and provided input on relative importance, anticipated instructional time, and the appropriateness of the standards for different question types. This slide shows the design for grades 5 and 6. This slide shows the design for grades 7 and 8. NC check-ins are available in paper, pencil, and online formats. They do not contain sample items. The ELA reading NC check-ins contain multiple choice items only. Item types for mathematics NC check-ins vary. The items include multiple choice items for paper, pencil, and online administrations. Students at grades 5 through 8 may see gridded response or numeric entry items on their NC check-ins. The gridded response items, which are on the paper pencil check-ins, require students to write and fill in numerical answers on their answer sheets rather than to select answers from several choices. Every student participating in the paper pencil grades 5 through 8 mathematics NC check-ins should complete the gridded response practice activity at least one time at the school before the administration of NC check-in 1. The practice activity will allow students to become familiar with gridded response format. Copies of the gridded response practice activity are shipped to each school and may be found on the NCDPI website. Students at grades 5 through 8 taking the NC check-in online may see numeric entry items. The numeric entry items require students to type in a numeric response rather than select answers from several choices. Students participating in the online NC check-in must complete the appropriate online assessment tutorial one time at school before the administration of NC check-in 1. The mathematics NC check-ins are in two parts. The first part is calculator inactive. The second is calculator active. For the calculator inactive part, students are not allowed to use the calculator. For the calculator active part, students can use a calculator. Please note that the grade 6 NC check-in 1 contains calculator active questions only. Schools participating in NC check-ins should not administer any local benchmark assessments to students in the same subject as the NC check-in in which students are participating. For example, grade 4 students participating in the mathematics NC check-in should not take a local benchmark in mathematics. Schools do not have to administer the NC check-ins to all students on the same day, but they must be administered within the testing window. Teachers have the flexibility to administer the check-ins in one day or over multiple days. For multiple days, the total test time can be divided into mini sessions. Administration should not interfere with lunch or bus schedules. If a student is absent on the day the NC check-in is administered, a makeup session is strongly encouraged. This slide shows the list of materials needed for the NC check-ins. Teachers will receive the same materials for the NC check-ins as they do for EOG testing. Teachers are assigned a teacher's guide for administering the NC check-ins. This guide will be used for all 3 check-ins. During the administration of the NC check-ins, the classroom environment should remain the same as it is day to day. The classroom teacher, or the teacher who typically provides assessments to students with disabilities who use certain accommodations such as testing in a separate room, should administer the check-ins. Proctors are not required. In addition, furniture does not need to be rearranged, nor do displays need to be covered or removed. IEP 504 and/or EL teams do not have to reconvene and document the accommodations for the check-ins. Accommodations that are specified on the student's current IEPs, Section 504 plans, or EL plans for the EOG test may be used. Note the accommodations read aloud and signing cueing are not allowed for the ELA reading NC check-ins. One of the greatest benefits to the NC check-ins is the use of data for review sessions with students. If the NC check-in is administered in paper and pencil format, teachers may keep the books for up to 5 weeks beyond the close of the testing window. The books must remain at school at all times and stored in a secure, locked facility that is not accessible to students but is accessible to teachers. It is very important during the review sessions that teachers collect and count all books from students after each review to ensure the books are not misplaced, discarded in the trash, or taken home by students. This is very important. Let me repeat it again. During review sessions, teachers must collect and count all books from students after each review to ensure that the books are not misplaced, discarded in the trash, or taken home by students. Parents can review the students' responses within the school setting only. The teacher can share with parents the student scores on the items through customary communication, such as an individual parent-teacher conference. NC check-ins cannot be shared with other schools. Just like the paper and pencil administrations, if a check-in is administered online, teachers will have 5 weeks beyond the close of the designated window for review sessions. During review sessions for online administrations, teachers and students will not have access to the original online assessment that contains the students' responses. A PDF file of the check-ins will be available after the check-in administration. The PDF file may be displayed on a computer, laptop, or projected onto a screen such as a smartboard. Teachers can use the score reports to inform and guide reviews and instruction for the standards. Again, the teachers can share with parents the students' scores on the items through customary communication. Once all answer sheets have been scored, the LEA or charter school test coordinator should return reports to the teachers within 5 school days. Reports from online administrations are available to the school test coordinators the day after administration. Individual student reports should be provided to parents within 30 calendar days. Once teachers receive the student reports, they can use the data to analyze and interpret the results. This can be done individually, in grade level meetings, or during PLCs. The report will help guide future instruction. So let's take a look at the different reports available. The next few slides will show the different reports available for NC check-ins. Notice that the reports say 2017-18 at the top. We are currently finalizing the reports for 2018-19. The same type of reports will be available this year. The only differences are the total number of items and the standards assessed per check-in. This slide shows the class roster report for Grade 5 English Language Arts Reading. The English Language Arts Reading class rosters for NC Check-ins 2 and 3 are the same as the class roster for NC Check-in 1. The school information is included at the top of the report. You'll see LEA school code, the teacher name, test date, school name, and test form. Below the school information is a table that is divided into 2 columns. In the left column is the list of the students tested. In the right column are the number of items on the check-in, listed as possible points, and the results for each student listed by the correct number, the percent correct, and the number of items attempted. Achievement levels are not provided for the check-ins. Looking at the class roster, you will see that students 1 and 2 were absent. Student 4 answered 17 out of 20 items correctly for a score of 85%. Students 11 and 13 had their check-in invalidated because their test was read aloud or signed, which is not an approved accommodation on a reading test. The last row in the table gives the class mean with a 12.6 as the number correct and 63.1% as the percent correct. The next report available for teachers is the class subscore roster. You will notice that the subscore roster has a bit more information than the class roster report. The school information is the same at the top. The table is divided into several columns. The first column is the list of students who took the assessment. The columns following are the students' results. In column 2, you will see the number correct with a footnote. The footnote at the bottom tells the number of total possible points, which is 20 items in this example. This will vary based on the grade level and the check-in. Then continuing to the right, you will see the student's percent correct. In the third column, you have the item type. Column CI, which stands for Calculator Inactive, and column CA, which stands for Calculator Active, tell you how many items are in the Calculator Inactive and Active sections of the check-in. There were 12 items in the Calculator Inactive section and 8 items in the Calculator Active section. The GR stands for Gridded Response, which will only be on reports for grades 5 through 8. There were 5 gridded response items on this check-in. The footnote for the gridded response items states that those questions are in the Calculator Inactive section of the test. For 2018-19, gridded response items are in both the inactive and active sections of the check-ins, so the footnote will not appear on this year's reports. The last section of this shows the subscores for the goals assessed. There are 4 ratio and proportional relationship questions, 8 number system questions, 4 expressions and equations, and 4 geometry questions. All abbreviations are in the footnotes at the bottom. Take a look at student 14. This student got 13 out of 20 questions correct, which is 65%. Out of the 20 items, 8 out of 12 of the Calculator Inactive questions were answered correctly, and 5 out of 8 Calculator Active questions were answered correctly. 8 plus 5 equals the 13 items answered correct as noted. Student 14 answered 4 out of 5 of the gridded response questions correctly. In the final column of the subscore results, the student scored 3 out of 4 RPR questions correctly, 5 out of 8 NS questions correctly, and 3 out of 4 E&E questions correctly, and answered 2 of the 4 GM questions correctly. 3 plus 5 plus 3 plus 2 equals the 13 questions correct. The ELA reading class subscore roster is laid out the same way as the mathematics reports. Looking at the results, you will see footnote 1 denotes there are 20 items on the check-in. Remember, this will vary based on the check-in and the grade level. The last section of the table has 3 subscore columns broken down by goals. Language has 3 questions. Reading for literature has 11 questions. Reading for information had 6 questions. Like the class roster we looked at earlier, you will notice that the class mean is provided at the bottom of the table for each column. Next is the class item report, which provides the most detail. The class item reports for mathematics and the ELA reading NC check-ins provide teachers with the same school information as the other reports. Below the school information, the report contains the class mean, the class percent correct, the school mean, and the school percent correct. The remaining portion of the report is divided into several parts. Moving from left to right, the far left section lists the categories presented in the cells of the table: item number, content standard, depth of knowledge, class percent correct, school percent correct, calculator active for mathematics only, and the correct answer. The item numbers are grouped by the content subgroup that is measured on the check-in. Depth of knowledge categorizes tasks according to the complexity of thinking required to complete them. The mathematics NC check-ins have a calculator inactive section and a calculator active section. On the sample grade 6 mathematics class item report, the calculator active row indicates by the word yes that the item is in the calculator active section, or by the word no that the question is not in the calculator active section. The correct answer row provides the answer key to the NC check-in. Multiple choice questions have an A, B, C, or D answer, and gridded response items for mathematics have a numeric answer. For each student, the answer chosen is listed in the box. If the answer is correct, the box is white. Incorrect answers are shaded gray. This class item report shows the performance of the entire class. It can also be generated so that only one student is shown at a time. Take a few minutes and look at this report. If this was your class and you were preparing for review sessions, think about the following. Which students need remediation? Which students need extension activities? Is there a particular item you might review with the entire class? What other conclusions can you draw from this report? This slide provides an example of the individual student report for mathematics at grade 6. The layout for all check-ins are the same, however the subgroups are different, and it lists calculator inactive and active sections for math. The results are broken down by student and by school. Each column is explained below the scores. That concludes the reports teachers and parents will receive. The final section in today's webinar explains the resources available for the NC check-ins. These resources are available on the accountability section of DPI's website. The NC Check-ins English Language Arts Reading grades 4 through 8 assessed content standards and structure, and the NC Check-ins Mathematics grades 3 through 8 test specification documents talk about the layout of the check-ins and the standards assessed. There are also 2 assessment briefs available. NC Check-ins grades 3 through 8 Mathematics, grades 4 through 8 English Language Arts Reading, and the NC Check-ins reports both provide information about the check-ins and the reports available. There is also a frequently asked questions document. There is a school talking points document that principals and teachers may use when talking about the NC check-ins to parents. Also, sample answer sheets that will be used during the check-ins are provided. That concludes the NC Check-ins webinar. Thank you for listening. As always, if you have any questions, please contact your school test coordinator or your district or charter test coordinator.